Assalamu alaikum everyone, this is Umaira Zafar. I welcome you all to my channel. Before starting my lesson today, I would like to request you all to subscribe my channel. Now let's start with our lesson. That is about role of NAD, FAD and coenzyme A, right? So first of all, we will be discussing about NAD and FAD, then we'll be discussing about coenzyme A, right? So you already know about NAD. I had mentioned about this hydrogen carrier molecule in my previous video, and if you want to watch that video, the link of that video I will be sharing in my description box, right? So NAD and FAD, they are basically both hydrogen carrier molecules, right? They are involved in oxidation and reduction reactions. So during respiration, hydrogen carrier molecules which are involved in respiration process, which are involved in oxidation and reduction reactions, they are basically NAD and FAD, right? In cell, you say that they are present in oxidized form, and during respiration they are reduced and form reduced NAD and reduced FAD, right? And if you talk about NAD or FAD, you will be discussing their similarities firstly, and if you talk about NAD or FAD, you say that both are hydrogen carrier molecules, both are coenzymes, and they both are involved in oxidation reduction reactions. So these are the similar functions which they are basically performing within the cells. And if you talk about differences between NAD and FAD, you will be saying that NAD accepts one proton and is reduced by accepting that proton, whereas FAD will be accepting two protons, and then by accepting that those two protons it will be reduced. NAD is involved in glycolysis, in link reaction and Krebs cycle. It's oxidized in oxidative phosphorylation, like when it is reduced, when NAD is reduced in glycolysis and link reaction and Krebs cycle, then those reduced NADs are oxidized in oxidative phosphorylation. So these stages which I have mentioned here, like glycolysis, link reaction and Krebs cycle and oxidative phosphorylation, these are basically four stages of aerobic respiration, right? So during these stages, what you say, during the first three stages, which are basically glycolysis, link reaction and Krebs cycle, NAD is reduced and then it is reoxidized in oxidative phosphorylation stage, right? And if you talk about FAD, that is involved in Krebs cycle only. It's not like it is involved in glycolysis, link reaction or in Krebs cycle. It's involved in Krebs cycle only, and in Krebs cycle you say FAD is reduced and then again it is oxidized in oxidative phosphorylation, as reduced NAD is oxidized in oxidative phosphorylation, right? The last point is, on oxidation, reduced NAD will be producing 2.5 ATP molecules, whereas FAD will be producing 1.5 ATP molecules, right? So these are the differences between these two hydrogen carrier molecules. So if you talk about the structure of NAD, so NAD is basically composed of two nucleotides, right? And these nucleotides, they are combined with their phosphate groups. And if you talk about these nucleotides, then one of these nucleotides, in one of these nucleotides, organic base is replaced by a substance which is called nicotinamide, right? So because of this, you name it as nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. So as name is indicating, that is basically a dinucleotide molecule, and in one of these nucleotides, organic base is replaced by a substance that is called nicotinamide, right? So that nicotinamide group basically accepts proton and electrons and is reduced. So NAD is a hydrogen carrier molecule, and when it accepts hydrogen in the form of proton and it accepts electrons and then it is reduced. So you call it as hydrogen carrier molecule because it accepts protons and electrons, and it carries those protons into the other stages of aerobic respiration, right? So lastly, we will be discussing about role of coenzyme A. Again, that is involved in aerobic respiration. And if you talk about role of coenzyme A, then it is basically involved in removal of two carbon fragment from certain carbohydrate and lipids during respiration, right? So coenzyme A, that is basically normally involved in link reaction, and during link reaction, as you know, pyruvate is converted into acetyl group, and that acetyl group is carried by coenzyme A, and that acetyl group along with coenzyme A, you say basically that acetyl group will be entering Krebs cycle, and the coenzyme A will be responsible to carry that acetyl group into Krebs cycle. So coenzyme A is involved in the removal of two carbon fragment from certain carbohydrate and lipids during respiration, right? So in today's lesson you talked about similarities and differences between NAD and FAD. You discussed functions of FAD and NAD, and lastly you discussed role of coenzyme A, right? So this was all about today's lesson. Thank you everyone.